It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. The final push. Keir Starmer bats away suggestions that he could be the most unpopular Prime Minister ever as the leaders campaign with just days to go until the election.
You could be the most unpopular Labour leader to become Prime Minister, to enter number 10. No, really, does that worry you?
Well, Beth, let me address it. It's a serious question that needs a serious answer.
A warning that delays in the postal voting system could impact the outcome of the election in Scotland. Also tonight, a big win for Donald Trump as the Supreme Court rules that former presidents can have criminal immunity from some prosecutions. France's hard right on the cusp of power after winning round one of the elections, and President Macron begins a big week of campaigning ahead of the final vote. Israel orders the evacuation of Khan Yunis in Gaza as Palestinian prisoners released by Israel make claims of torture. England star Jude Bellingham faces a UEFA investigation over a gesture he made during the match against Slovakia. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. It is the final week of the election campaign, now little over 2 days for politicians to convince people to vote for them. The polls have it as a victory for Labour, but as the cost of living continues to bite and in the wake of an election betting scandal, just how energised are voters? Many of the leaders were out on the campaign trail today. Sir Keir Starmer tackling questions on being unpopular, Conservatives insisting all was not lost. And it was a leap of faith from the Lib Dems. Sky's deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has this report.
It's been a safety-first election campaign for Keir Starmer, walking what he hopes to be a fine line towards victory. And his message today, assume nothing, get out the Labour vote.
This is the final mile. These are the last hard yards. Every constituency is a fight and the polls do not predict the future.
You could be heading this week for a big majority, but you could be the most unpopular Labour leader to become Prime Minister, to enter number 10. No, really, does that worry you? Because you could end up with the biggest wedding and then have the shortest honeymoon ever.
4.5 years ago, when I took over as leader of the Labour Party, I got similar questions. And I've got a strategy and we will do it. And that's what we've done under my leadership. We have taken this party, we have changed it, and here we stand on the Monday before the election, ready to change our country for the better.
This leader fighting on, but perhaps the game is now up. Here in another defensive Tory seat.
I will fight for you. I will make sure that your voice is heard.
In Staffordshire, trying to convince factory workers to stick with him, if only to stop a Labour landslide.
I don't take a single place or person for granted, but I don't want Britain to sleepwalk into the danger of what an unchecked Labour government with a supermajority would mean.
Off we go.
All campaign, Rishi Sunak's been playing a defensive wicket against the dual threat of the Reform Party to the right and the Liberal Democrats in the blue wall. Ed Davey in search of an electoral bounce in the Tory marginal of Eastbourne.
I'm going to take the plunge, so take the plunge with me.
After years of being in electoral freefall, on Thursday, Ed Davey needs to pull off his biggest stunt yet and win dozens of seats to get back to being the third biggest party in Westminster and in his sights, disgruntled Tory voters.
We're seeing lifelong Conservatives switch to us. We're trying to get them to take the plunge and many more join them. If they do, we can win.
In Hitchin and Harpenden, it's now a two-way fight, a Tory stronghold turned Labour target. For voters here, it's make your mind up time. The general election on Thursday, what do you think about it all?
I'm really not interested.
Are you going to vote?
No. if I was going to vote, I'd go Reform.
It looks like Starmer will become Prime Minister. What do you think of him?
I think he's a decent, respectable person, which is what we need after a long time of Tory government.
I don't reckon on Labour winning. I hope that they don't, but if they do, I hope that he kind of stops swapping his mind about.
But the polls say otherwise and have done for weeks. Keir Starmer on the cusp of making electoral history. Just days left now to frame the argument and usher in a new political era for this place and beyond. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Hitchin.
And here are all the candidates standing in the Hitchin constituency. Now, residents in Scotland have told Sky News they are not able to vote because their ballot papers didn't arrive in time. Some postal ballots have been delayed in Scotland and parts of England, with several Scottish councils running emergency centres for voters whose packs had not arrived. Sky's Ashna Hurinag reports now from Edinburgh.
It's election week, but also the start of the summer break in Scotland. But many, like the Good family, have got their bags, but no ballot. They applied weeks ago for their postal votes, but they never arrived.
Had enough time to organise it, and it's just never arrived.
So massively disappointed, I suppose.
Yeah, I have. So people who are going on holiday like ourselves, this is the Scottish holiday period. So a lot of people will be in the same position as us, who's not had time to go and pick up packs if their postal vote's not arrived. So we just won't have our say.
Nor will Ben, bound for Barcelona, feeling like he's had his democratic right taken away.
It's very disappointing that it didn't arrive on time. I was looking forward to voting. I feel like this is an important election, especially in Scotland.
And it's people in Scotland who are among the worst affected, as councils struggle with sudden demand and a tight timetable. There's been a particular surge in the number of postal vote applications here because this election falls slap bang in the middle of Scottish school summer holidays. In Edinburgh alone, the number of people choosing a postal vote has risen by 42% since the last general election. Across the UK, there's been a 20% rise. Politics lecturer Scott says these delays could alter the end result. Ironically, he's also not received his vote before his holiday.
There are constituencies, like my parents' constituency, where the MRP polls are suggesting there's a 1% difference potentially of the votes between the presumed winner and the second place. So it could change the outcomes.
Some councils, including here in Edinburgh, have opened emergency centres to try to solve the issue. Those trying to fix it accept there have been failings.
Elections are always a tight tension between making it accessible so people can take part, but also making sure it's safe and secure. We'll apologise to people for any failings we've got, but what we're doing is working to apply the rules and apply the law.
The Electoral Commission says it recognises the pressures on the voting system because of the holiday season and says it'll look into the issue after polling day. By then, it'll be too late for those who feel like this disruption has affected democracy. Ashna Hurinag, Sky News in Edinburgh.
Well, let's get more from our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, who's in Oxfordshire. So 2 full days left of polling, Sam. Some seats, of course, on a knife edge. What are the priorities for party leaders now?
Well, this evening, Anna, there was a remarkable admission by one member of the Labour election team. They said the air war, now that's the election jargon for the conversation in newspapers and on television about this election, is all but over. Now, that doesn't mean that Labour think they're definitely on course to win. There's a remarkable amount of jitters on the Labour side. They see all those polling projections. They see a huge spread of possible results. They worry about the fact that a small number of votes in seats could make a colossal difference to the outcome in this election. So it isn't that they're complacent, it's just that they are now in this last phase of the campaign going to rely on the ground campaign, so activists getting people to the polling booth, and on digital campaigning, feeds into people's social media, people's computers and mobile phone. So that's the view in the Labour camp. On the Tory camp, if anything, it's even more eyebrow-raising. I was talking to a former cabinet minister this evening who very much focused on the future post-Thursday. They said that they are planning to sit out helping in any of the leadership campaigns that are likely to be triggered starting on Friday, because they think there'll be another one in 2 years' time, because they'll come along because the Tory party is likely to be in such turmoil. All the Tory conversation is about the mechanics of what happens after Friday. That seems to suggest to me, Anna, that the focus is no longer the main parties on Thursday, but on Friday and the future.
Sam, live there in Oxfordshire. Thank you. Donald Trump has hailed a US Supreme Court ruling, which means he could be partially immune from prosecution for his actions while president. The former president faces charges over his role in the January the 6th riots, but the ruling means the trial will likely not happen until after the election in November, in which Trump is the Republican candidate. Sky's US correspondent James Matthews reports from Washington.
This was a Supreme Court decision on a former president and the power of the presidency. Donald Trump on the docket drew a crowd, not the supportive kind.
He's got immunity.
They learned of a court decision to give him immunity from prosecution, in part.
I think it's another cop-out by a corrupted Supreme Court.
I'm shocked. I really thought the Supreme Court would come to its senses.
This is about the January the 6th riots at the Capitol and Donald Trump's alleged role in it.
We fight like hell.
He's been due to face trial for spreading false claims about the 2020 election, blocking its certification and intimidating voters. But Trump's lawyers argued to Supreme Court judges that he should be immune from prosecution as a former president. The judges partly agreed. They said a president should have immunity for official acts carried out in office, but not for acts deemed unofficial.
What Jack Smith has to do now is go back to his indictment and go through it line by line and decide which allegations now are immune from prosecution and which are not and can survive.
More than 400 people have been jailed since the riots at the Capitol. The criminal pursuit of the man accused as their inspiration just got more complicated. And so a lower court will now decide what can be prosecuted, the difference between the official act of a president and an unofficial act. It will almost certainly delay Donald Trump's election subversion trial beyond the November election. Donald Trump called the Supreme Court decision a big win for our Constitution and democracy. Republican-appointed judges carried the day, including 3 chosen by Trump himself. There was bitter criticism from the Democratic-appointed minority about a president insulated from criminal prosecution. Justice Sonia Sotomayor gave examples. Orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organises a military dissenting coup to hold on to power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune. With fear for our democracy, I dissent, she said. It is a significant story, even if the plight of the sitting president remains front page. The First Lady and close family are said to be backing Joe Biden to carry on.
He did not a single thing to stop it, nothing.
In a same-day political advert, the Biden campaign exploited the January the 6th issue. With their rival on a roll, they need the distraction. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
He was a national hero last night. Jude Bellingham saved the day for England with his spectacular last-minute equaliser against Slovakia. But he is now facing a disciplinary investigation for his celebrations after the goal, which kept England's Euros dream alive. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris joins me now. So what is the accusation then, Rob, and what's his defence?
Well, the UEFA announced this afternoon that they were conducting an investigation into whether Jude Bellingham, in their words, violated the rules of decent conduct. And this all relates to a lewd gesture that's alleged after he scored that dramatic late equaliser to save the day for England against Slovakia, ensuring that the game went to extra time when Harry Kane could clinch the winner to secure a quarter-final place. But It's the crotch-grabbing gesture that is something that UEFA are now investigating into whether it should face disciplinary action. Bellingham himself said it was actually just something relating to close friends at the game, and he did not mean any disrespect towards the Slovakians. The fear will be for England that he could be banned for the quarter-final with Switzerland, although a recent case that UEFA did investigate on a similar gesture involving Cristiano Ronaldo 5 years ago led only to a €20,000 fine. So the hope will be that England do have him available for the next match. And I can say, having been at the England camp today, there is a real sense of relief that they're even still in this competition, having gone within minutes of going out until Bellingham scored in the 95th minute. And today I've been speaking to the England goalkeeper, Jordan Pickford. Coming back from the dead, does it give you the belief that anything is possible? You can go all the way and win the trophy?
I think if you look at the past tournaments, who's won the tournaments, I think Portugal in 2016, I think they drew all three group games, and they went on to win the tournament. So I think you've got to show resilience, you've got to show character, and we've just got to keep fighting, believing, and train hard, get the game plan right, and come Saturday against a tough opponent, hopefully we're the better side.
Well, they feel they've got their belief back again, and they think anything is possible, having produced such a stirring comeback against Slovakia. Now, a day of rest for them tomorrow with their families before the real business of preparing to face Switzerland in the quarter-finals of the Euros on Saturday.
Rob, they're in Cologne. Thank you. Well, to the elections in France now, and the far right could be on the brink of government for the first time since the Second World War. The National Rally, led by Marine Le Pen, won the first round of the vote last night and is on course to become the largest party in the next parliament, with just days to go until voters go to the polls again. Well, the far-right National Rally and its allies, led by Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, won just over a third of the vote. While the left-wing coalition, the New Popular Front, came in second place on around 28% of the vote. The centrists, Together for the Republic coalition, led by President Macron and Prime Minister Gabriel Attal's Renaissance Party, lagged in third with just under 21%. The second round of the election will take place on Sunday, the 7th of July. Candidates who won more than 12.5% in the first round in each constituency will go head-to-head in the second round. Now, centrists and the left have 48 hours to stand down their candidates in constituencies where there's a three-way runoff to help their allies win and prevent the far right getting through. If National Rally do win the second round, President Macron will be forced to govern alongside the far right and appoint the party's chief, Jordan Bardella, to the role of Prime Minister. It would be the first time France is led by a far-right government since the Nazi occupation. Our international correspondent, John Sparks, has this report from Paris.
This the moment Marine Le Pen has long dreamt of. Her hard-right party, National Rally, now standing on the cusp of power. And this man, Jordan Bardella, has played a key role. Party candidate for Prime Minister, he's garnered the biggest share of the vote, ahead of the leftists, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
I am reaching out to voters on the right, the centre and the reasonable left who don't want to see Jean-Luc Mélenchon become Prime Minister. That would mean insurrection, chaos and economic disorder for our country.
President Macron said a vote for the hard right or hard left would invite civil war. But members of his alliance have changed their tune. Better to vote with the left if it keeps out the far right. And parties on the left agree. Not one vote for National Rally, they say.
For those people who see the far right as a very direct threat, we have to fight to the end and make sure that France remains France.
So, 1 week of feverish campaigning for the seats in the National Assembly. And we'll see plenty of political horse trading as well, as candidates in some constituencies withdraw in exchange for favours elsewhere. It could be the only way to stop the far right from gaining an absolute parliamentary majority.
in the past what we call the Republican front. That is to say, every party, whether on the centre, on the right, on the left, oppose the candidate from the hard right. That Republican front has weakened, and therefore the hard right has increased its hold on the country.
Yet many in France will not tolerate the prospect of a government from the far right. And we saw protesters taking to the streets after the initial results were released. National Rally's policies are divisive, but party officials think they make perfect sense.
Yes, some people are afraid, but they should not be afraid, because what we're proposing to the French electors is common sense. It's normal that in France, French people would be the priority of the French government, and that the foreign people would be taken care, of course, but after the French citizens.
National Rally are likely to form the largest bloc in Parliament, but their presence and their policies will be fought. Here in Paris, thousands have been mobilizing to defeat the hard right. But National Rally are the new reality in France. John Sparks, Sky News in Paris.
Israeli military has ordered a mass evacuation of Gaza's second largest city, Khan Yunis. The order is specific to the eastern side of the city and is being viewed as a sign that Hamas may have regrouped in the area. Earlier today, the IDF released dozens of Palestinians from detention, including the director of the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. Sky's Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports from Jerusalem.
55 Palestinians detained from Gaza have been released. Among them, Dr. Abu Salmiya, the director of Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa. He's been freed after 7 months in detention. Israel alleges that the hospital was used as a command and control center for Hamas operations. Dr. Abu Salmiya says that he was tortured.
The prisoners have gone through what no prisoners have suffered in the history of the Palestinian people, even since the Nakba. From physical humiliation, mental humiliation, not being fed or not being provided enough food, not giving them clothes. When you need treatment there, you get tortured at the hands of a doctor or a nurse. This does not happen anywhere in the world, to have doctors and nurses punish a prisoner.
Sky News cannot independently verify the accusation. We have approached the Israeli prison service. It is not clear why these prisoners were released and now, perhaps to free up prison space. But it also raises questions about whether they were in fact guilty of what they were accused of. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the decision to release the director of the Shifa hospital a severe mistake and an ethical failure. He doubled down on the war effort and the mission to eliminate what he called Hamas's terror army.
Our forces are operating in Rafah, in Shajaya, everywhere in the Gaza Strip. Every day they eliminate dozens of terrorists. It is a difficult struggle that is waged above ground, sometimes face-to-face, and also waged underground.
Al-Shifa was, like many hospitals in Gaza, totally destroyed. The destruction of civilian infrastructure is a war crime, but the Israelis say that Al-Shifa hosted terrorists in a complex underground tunnel system. The Palestinians deny that and say that Israel has produced little evidence. Meanwhile, the conflict in Gaza continues. A mass evacuation order ahead of a looming ground assault in Khan Yunis, Gaza's second largest city, was ordered today. But Israel says that the intense period of fighting in Gaza is now days away from concluding. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News.
Hurricane Beryl has made landfall in the Caribbean this evening. The dangerous and extremely powerful storm, with winds of up to 150 miles an hour, has blown off roofs and uprooted trees on one of the Grenadine Islands. Well, it is the earliest storm of that strength to form in the Atlantic, expected to bring a storm surge and flash flooding. Forecasters have predicted potentially catastrophic wind damage, with hurricane warnings in effect now for Barbados, St Lucia, Tobago and St Vincent and the Grenadines. In Greece, firefighters assisted by planes and helicopters have been tackling wildfires on the islands of Kos and Chios. Emergency services have now issued an evacuation order in an area of western Chios, and on Kos, people have been urged to head to safe areas as the fires spread. The Greek Prime Minister has warned that a prolonged drought and unusually strong winds have created dangerous conditions this summer. 3 military horses have been caught after bolting through central London after being spooked by a bus near Pimlico. Despite colliding with a black cab, an army spokesperson said only one horse received minor injuries and that no further treatment was required. It is the second incident in the last 3 months involving army horses running loose in the capital. Now, Emma Raducanu won her first match on the opening day of Wimbledon today, but it is still uncertain whether the former Wimbledon champion Sir Andy Murray will compete in his singles match tomorrow after undergoing an operation to remove a spinal cyst on his back last week. Sky's Jackie Beltrao has been looking at the past and future stars of British tennis.
He's done everything he can to make the Wimbledon singles lineup just one more time. But Andy Murray still hasn't made a decision about whether he'll be able to play. Without doubt, the Scot, who was knighted after his second Wimbledon win in 2016, is one of Britain's greatest ever sportsmen, with 3 Grand Slams and 2 Olympic goals. The former world #1 held his own in the golden era of Federer, Nadal and Djokovic.
We've got more people playing tennis at the grassroots of the game than we've ever had before. On the professional side, you know, when he won Wimbledon just over 10 years ago, he was the only male player we had in the top 250 in the world. We've now got 11. Now that inspiration has rubbed off, that will to win, that success breeds success, and you know, we're enormously proud of everything he's done.
Murray hasn't made it to the second week of a Grand Slam since 2017. In 2019, the Australian Open tried to retire him prematurely with an awkward montage video. Shortly after that, he had his hip resurfacing operation and defied the medics by returning to the tour. That gritty attitude has inspired a new generation of British talent. Former US Open champion Emma Raducanu, back from injury, returned to centre court for the first time in 2 years and was given a big star reception. Katie Boulter, the British female #1, has flown up the rankings in the last 12 months. While the men's British #1, 22-year-old Jack Draper, won his first ATP title on grass a few weeks ago and then beat the Wimbledon champion at Queen's Club, he'll fancy his chances of doing some damage here. Speaking over the weekend, he paid tribute to Murray's legacy.
Andy's the reason why I wanted to be a professional tennis player in the first place. Watching him from home, watching him on the centre court here, win the Olympics, win Wimbledon here. You know, it was honestly such an honour to be able to watch someone live do it like he did it.
In his 2 decades here at Wimbledon, there have been plenty of Murray magic moments. Hoping now he'll get one more chance to say goodbye to centre court on his terms. Jackie Beltrao, Sky News, Wimbledon.
Now, the last 2 years have been dominated by one huge worry for millions of people in the UK, the cost of living. As polling day approaches, Sky's people and politics correspondent Nick Martin looks at how this is going to influence the outcome of the election.
One thing I don't think we've noticed is food prices coming down at all. In fact, I think quite the opposite. We eat according to price rather than enjoyment.
Sarah and Paul Bomer have had a tough 2 years. They've had to find ways to survive the worst cost of living crisis since the 1950s. And now they have another decision to make. Who's going to make life better for them? When I first met them, Rishi Sunak had just become Prime Minister.
I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda.
I'm cold now.
They live in Derbyshire. Paul's registered disabled and Sarah helps to care for him. Autumn is drawing in and their energy bills have doubled.
The direct debit payment of £240 is due on the 27th of May. Next thing I know, just a quick reminder, we'll collect your monthly direct debit payment of £492.96 on the 27th of June. That's 1 month difference.
What did you think when you read that?
I was just burst into tears. I was just like, what are we going to do? And we've had to find that money every single month, and we've had to make massive, massive cutbacks.
With the bills going up, do you feel that that's put a lot of strain on you?
You feel like you're having to stand there and keep a smile on your face, and you have to put a mask on for your children.
Fast forward 2 years, and the general election is just around the corner. And while inflation's come down, the price of food is still 25% higher than it was when I first met Sarah and Paul.
Nothing's really changed in the last 2 years, with the same situation.
Sarah grew up in a Conservative voting family. Paul is traditional Labour.
What's your assessment of this government's handling of the economy, and who do you have faith in making improvements to the economy that make your life better?
I'll stick with Labour this time because I don't think it's been as bad under a Conservative government this bad for a long time.
I don't find Keir Starmer as engaging as perhaps I should do, but I really believe in what he stands for. We're looking at 14 years of the current government. Things haven't improved for us. In fact, they've got worse for us. So that's something that we have to take into consideration with this election.
Their politics have very much been shaped by what they've gone through as a family. And in a life that's been full of difficult decisions recently, this election is no different. Nick Martin, Sky News, Derbyshire.